Melbourne United, whole new name change. They're really embracing. I don't think they're really embracing the old Melbourne teams, but I see during the preseason they're doing like the Melbourne Country jerseys and things like that. So it's probably, I see why they've changed the name. Definitely, I think a step in the right direction, shedding the Tigers name, and hopefully it can be picked up by another club later on. But the big thing is they picked up David Barlow and Daniel Kickett. Do you think these guys can seriously make a run at the championship this year?
Oh yeah, I mean it depends on. I mean they've still got one import spot still open up there. But if you take away all the imports, if no imports were allowed to play in the league, this team would win almost every game that they play in right now. I mean, bringing Barlow in, bringing Kickett in on the marquee rule, and still having guys like Wertho around, they are a seriously dangerous, seriously good team. And if these guys gel, and a lot of these guys have played, or the new guys coming in have played with a lot of these guys before. And under Chris Anstey's system, they're going to have a seriously good year this year. I'm really excited with what they're going to offer. The one thing, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the name change in a little bit, but the one thing that really annoys me about this team, they didn't pick up Pingu as their mascot. What's going on? Well, Pingu was like that. Oh.
What ended up being the mascot? I can't remember.
I think it was the ball. Yeah,
yeah, it's pretty piss weak.
Yeah, I mean, Pingu was awesome. Like, they would have had the kids coming in. I would have moved to Melbourne if Pingu was that mascot.
Stephen Dennis, do you reckon? Like last year, we saw him in the preseason, and he was tearing it up in Sydney. And people say, oh yeah, preseason, Brad Hill dropped 42, but still, you could tell when someone can play, and he could flat out play. Do you think if he's back to health, like full health, do you think possible MVP candidate?
Well, after the Blitz, we were talking about after the Blitz last year in Sydney, we were talking about him, and we were talking about James Ennis. And we saw what James Ennis did last year, and he was almost on that level in conversation for the MVP after the Blitz. And so, I mean, if he hasn't lost a step or anything, if he's still 100% healthy, he's definitely one of the MVP candidates this year. I'm really excited what he's going to offer running that team, and just look at the options that he's got out there. He's got a lot of guys out there who he's going to make look better, and there's a lot of guys out there who are going to really help him pad his stats because they're so good on the offensive end.
Definitely. I mean, there's not many teams that can lose someone like Chris Golding and somehow double in talent and double. Yeah, so I mean,
it's scary how good they are.
Nate Tomlinson as well. Like, it's going to be his third year in the year as well. Got most improved last year. I think he'll obviously play, I'd say, probably behind Dennis, but learning from Dennis, like, surely he'll step it up again as well.
Yeah, and there's going to be games where if they're up by a fair bit, or if Dennis isn't as healthy or playing that well. I mean, Nate Tomlinson's the perfect guy to have come in off the bench or even start in certain situations and lead this team. We saw him do it last year. We saw him be the floor general of that team going through the finals. So I mean, he's definitely a really dangerous guy to have off that bench. That bench is going to be seriously good this year. So
quickly, just on the name change, do you think it's a good idea they changed the name, or do you think they should have possibly? There's rumours that apparently the new owners had this idea in their head the whole time as soon as they bought into the Tigers. Do you think they should have waited for a second team, or do you think and let the Tigers be whoever they be, or do you think this is a right move in the right direction?
Well, I didn't hear all the way back from when they bought it, but I heard rumblings from definitely over a year ago that this was something that was on the cards for them, and 100% I feel they should have done it. I mean, it was the right idea. Chris Anstey and Nate Tomlinson, a few guys came out and said after it happened, I mean, you can't just keep doing the same thing and expect it to work. And I mean, there's one food of thought that they did this, to sort of curb the impact of a new team and sort of try and get some of those fans. But I mean, if you look at where the Tigers were going, and yes, they did have their loyal fan bases, but no, it wasn't working. So I feel that they definitely did the right thing to make the name change. The way they went about it, though, possibly could have been done a lot better. I mean, the end result was always going to be the same. They were always going to change their name, but for them to do it without even really talking to their fans about it, talking to their members, talking to some other key stakeholders, sort of keeping it under the rug and just sort of doing it with themselves and their marketing agency and a few different parties and really keeping it quiet. A lot of this and a lot of the negativity that happened to them over the last few months could have really been curbed if they just were open from the get-go and sort of consulted a few other parties.
What other names do you think they could have gone with? I mean, Melbourne United, everyone's over the soccer jokes, but at the same time, it does. It sounds like a soccer team, right? But there probably is a Melbourne United team. I don't know. I pretty much only follow basketball, but
I think what happened, and I'm probably going to be wrong, and someone's probably going to correct this, but I think that Melbourne United, the name of there was a soccer team, but I think that about a year ago or 6 months ago or something like that, the name was the trademark or whatever was finished, and then they picked it up then.
Oh wow, yeah. So one of the other big signings for Melbourne, David Barlow is back in the league. He was one of the bigger name players that spoke out about player point rating, blah, blah, blah. Marquee Rule comes in, he comes back, doesn't sign anything Marquee Rule. So obviously it was all about, or we, jumping to conclusions, but, probably about money. Do you think that he's going to take off from where he left off when he played for Sydney or in Melbourne? Or do you think that, age has sort of caught up to him now and if anything is, probably just going to be a massive letdown?
I don't think he's going to necessarily be a letdown. I think we're going to see him in a bit of coming back, a bit similar to Wertho. He's not going to come back and be the star of this team, but he's going to be a guy who is going to buy into the system. He's going to play his role, and he's really going to fit into this team. And I mean, to him coming back, I did find it surprising, just like you, the fact that he spoke to the media and went on social media and talked about how the player point rating system was the only reason why he was a big reason why he wasn't playing in Australia. But I mean, if his heart was always in Melbourne, he always wanted to come back to Australia. He's got a young family. He was thinking about having a young family and sort of growing them up back here. So even though that was the reason that was sort of keeping him out, if there was a way for him to be able to work around that and get back in, I always feel he was going to come back and he got a good deal and he's back at United and he's definitely going to be a key piece for that team.